everyone. Welcome into another episode of the Inside Voice podcast. I'm so glad you're here. If you're new, welcome. My name is Jess. I'm happy to be here. A little backstory on me. I'm basically a nobody doing a podcast because I want to, but also because I know that there are people out there that are trying to live a life that is fulfilling, but they don't feel like they're getting the support that they want. And my biggest fear is that we don't do what we want in life and we get to the end of it and we just are filled with so many regrets, and I don't want that for you. So that's what the Inside Voice podcast is all about. It's motivation, it's encouragement, little sisterly advice for you. It's a lot of trial and error that I'm sharing with you as well. It's a lot of just taking what's on the inside of you, that voice that I know that's inside of you, and letting it out. It's like, I'm going to chase after the thing because I want to, and I don't care who knows it, who hears it, who has an opinion about it. I'm gonna chase after this incredible, beautiful life that I know is in store for me. So I'm just so happy that you're here. I'm also a broadcaster. I host Taste of Country Weekend, and would love for you to tune in. Google it. But broadcast is definitely my first love. And, it's funny, this podcast, I talked a little bit about this last week. When I first started it, I knew the broadcast part of it was going to be okay for me to do, but there was so much I didn't know about the podcast world. And I quickly got overwhelmed with it, put it on the shelf, and never thought I'd come back to it, even though I'd recorded 150 episodes. But here I am doing it again, which is why this series that we are starting off season 2 of the Inside Voice podcast with is called the Begin Again series. Because I know there are so many people out there. You started something, you had good intentions, you maybe were really successful with it for a while. But then for whatever reason, it fell by the wayside. For whatever reason, you put it down, you stepped away from it, and it could have been a great reason. I don't want to say that anybody is lazy. I mean, I had to get with myself on that and say, no, there were parts of that podcast not working because you were lazy and you procrastinated way too much. But, things happen in life, schedules change, lives change, things happen, things come up. Time changes, life events happen, moves happen. There's a lot that goes into life, So don't beat yourself up for starting something and then putting it aside. You're a part of my journey right now in this begin again process. I'm learning a lot. I'm trying a lot. I'm taking the things that didn't work on the last podcast and putting them aside, and taking the things that did work and implementing them and magnifying them because they did work. And I want to encourage you to do the same. So thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for just hanging out, liking, subscribing, sharing, all that jazz. But also, if you're just listening to listen, if you're just watching this face, thank you. It really does mean a lot to me. In this Begin Again series, we started off with just giving ourselves permission to start again. I don't think we let ourselves do that. For whatever reason, we tell ourselves, we're a failure, we can never go back. We convince ourselves that people are going to think that we're an idiot for trying again. They'll make fun of us, yada, yada. Give yourself permission, remove the shame, and just go for it. We also talked about opposition, things that are going to pop up that are going to push back on you, and how to continue to move forward, because once you get going, that forward momentum is so incredibly valuable to keep you going. We talked about dreaming and really going there with what we want in this begin again process, and what we want the end result of whatever it is that we're chasing to look like. That can be a lot of fun. And I think sometimes we don't even give ourselves permission to do that because it's scary. We think, oh, I don't deserve to have that success. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I want to live that life, but nobody lives that life. Nobody I know lives that life, Nobody that is around me, has these same passions and things that they're pursuing. You know what I mean? But I wanted you to go there. And last week we talked about getting a plan in motion, how putting a plan together works, and resources that are available to you, making the commitment, and not being afraid to pivot, like Ross on Friends would say, pivot, and not being afraid to refine the plan as you move forward, and knowing that it's totally fine to do that, and you probably should do that. You don't want to drive yourself, into a corner. And we'll touch on some of that stuff as we talk about today. We're going to talk about 2 aspects of doing anything in life let's just say these are like your two friends in life. You got motivation on one side, you got discipline on the other. Maybe motivation's on one shoulder, discipline's on the other shoulder. Motivation is incredible. Motivation is like the spark that turns into a big flame and gets you going. Everybody loves motivation, right? Because when you feel it, oh, you feel absolutely invincible. Like nothing can stop you. Discipline, on the other hand, not so sexy. But discipline is in it for the long haul. So let's start with motivation. Like I said, motivation is incredibly powerful, but it's not always going to be there for you. Motivation is fickle. Motivation arrives late. Motivation sometimes ghosts you. Motivation is the person that's like, they're very attractive, but they're not the person that you're going to marry. They're fun for a while, but like we're going to move on pretty quickly. That doesn't mean that you can't spark motivation. That doesn't mean that you can't seek out ways to fan the flame of motivation, okay? Let's say that you are starting, I talk a lot about fitness. I know that's crazy, but I've been really successful with it for the last couple of years, and it's been such an accomplishment for me. And it's where I learned the most. It like really allowed me to tap into my former athlete mentality, which growing up, I was always playing sports. And that to me is where I learned like most of my lessons in life. So motivation, it gets you going. You fan the flame with motivation. You get moving forward with motivation, but it's not always going to be there. And when I was starting out in this fitness game and starting out and just trying to be consistent with working out, which if you've ever tried to do that, it is not easy, especially when you didn't have the examples growing up. Yeah, I played sports, but like beyond that, I didn't know like what to do at the gym. It's hard. Motivation can really help you get to the gym, but when it's not there, it makes it very difficult to do. You know what I mean? Motivation can sometimes leave you on the side of the road. You had it for a little bit and all of a sudden it's gone. But again, you can almost gamify motivation. It's not incredibly reliable, but you can fan those flames a little bit. So for me with the fitness journey, days that I'm not feeling motivated, sometimes when it comes to like working out or eating healthy, I find those people that I follow on social media that always make me feel like, yeah, I'm doing that. They did it, I'm doing it, and I learn things from them and I see how hard they work and the results that they've gotten. It's motivating. So you can use something like that to gamify your motivation. You can use something like that to boost your motivation. This podcast, I got to tell you, in season 1 and even, for the short time that we've been doing season 2, I've had that imposter syndrome. I've had those thoughts of like, I'm a nobody. Why am I doing this? I can't do this. Who's going to listen to this? Who's going to watch this? At the end of the day, like it's what I want to do, right? And when I need that extra motivation, I listen to other podcasters in this field doing the same thing about personal growth, doing the same thing about motivation, inspiration, and that gets me pumped up. It's like they're my coaches, they're my mentors. They don't know it, but like they inspire me, which helps me do this. So you can use things like that to boost your motivation. But like I said, it's not always going to be there for you. Sometimes it is going to leave you high and dry. That's why discipline is so much more valuable, because discipline is what's going to be there day in and day out. This is your steady, true, constant, long-term relationship. Discipline is what takes I'm going to try to do this to this is who I am. And I always tell people, like, whenever you're starting something that is new and that is difficult, it's going to be tough at the beginning. It's going to be really complicated. It's going to be challenging. Change is always hard. But at the end of the day, it's just going to become who you are. It's going to be another element of who you are. It's going to be another piece of the puzzle, if you will. So going back to my fitness journey, it wasn't a part of my routine to work out as often as I do now. At the very beginning, it was tough. I thought I could do it in the afternoons, couldn't go to the gym in the afternoons. It ended up needing to be a morning thing. I made that pivot. But ultimately, just showing up every single day made such a difference, because that's how discipline is built. Doesn't matter how you feel about it, it's what are you doing right now? What action are you going to take? And a lot of people, I've heard it put in this way, I'll probably butcher it, but discipline, it allows you to show up and work hard, and it allows you to pursue what you want in the future, even though you don't feel it right now. So discipline is knowing what you want despite how you're feeling right now and making a decision based on that. Does that make sense? So I may not want to work out today, but if my end game is to be somebody that works out consistently, to be somebody that is fit, to be somebody that is healthy, whatever that end goal is, I have to understand that my action right now doesn't matter how I feel. It matters what that end result is going to be. So as you're starting anything, just remember there's going to be hard times, but choose to do the hard thing. People always talk about this, choose your hard. Chasing after what you want in life and pursuing goals and dreams is hard. But not doing that and living with the regret of not doing that, that's also hard. So choose your hard, right? Choose in that moment what is going to push you further to what you want ultimately. And that means not giving yourself excuses. So I want to break down a little bit of some tips and tricks and some things to keep in mind as you are fostering this discipline mindset, fostering this feeling of discipline, this dedication to discipline. I think you can also gamify discipline, which sounds a little crazy because I don't want to bleed into like the motivation side of it. We talked about, Instagram accounts or podcasts or books or shows or whatever that make you feel motivated, like tap into those. When it comes to discipline, however, I think you have to be a little more strategic and a little more specific and logical about them. Jay Shetty, I don't know if this was his quote, but he was the first one that I heard it from. He had a quote that says this: time holds memory, space holds energy. I'll break that down for you. Time holds memory. Have you ever noticed that if you eat lunch at the same time every single day, you find yourself getting hungry at the same time every single day? That time holds memory within your body. Space holds energy. Have you ever noticed that when you walk into a room that, so you have an at-home office. A lot of people were working from home during the pandemic. If the kitchen table is where you were working, you might not have been successful because the kitchen table is not where you work. The kitchen table is where you eat dinner, right? But if you set up a space that was an office for you, you found yourself kind of like stepping into this, it's work mode every time you walked into the office. When I first started working from home, it was before the pandemic, and not a lot of people that I knew were working from home, but I had an uncle who was, and he told me, he said, there's got to be something or somewhere that you go every single day that is like, time to go to work. Whether it's putting clothes on, doing your hair, whether it's setting up a designated office space or office hours. He's like, you need something that triggers you to think it's time to work. Otherwise, it's just not going to be there for you. And I think it's valuable for you to set up a time and a place to work on whatever it is that you're chasing consistently. When I started my fitness journey, I moved my workouts to the morning and I worked out in my garage. So every day I'm going out there at the same time. So my body remembers at this time we work out, but also I'm going into the same space. So I step into that space and my body remembers the energy in that space. So not only does it remember we work out at this time every single day, but it also remembers, when we walk into this environment, it's game time. That I think is like a game changer way to gamify discipline. Because if you can do something consistently every single day at the same time, and you can do it consistently in the same space, you're going to be so much more successful when that motivation just isn't there. I have shared with you the last couple of weeks that I'm writing a book. I can't write that book in my house. I've tried different rooms. I've even tried my office, and for whatever reason, it just wasn't clicking. So what I decided to do was go to the library, and I pick a day. It may not always be consistent. I'll completely honest with you. But the days that I choose to go to the library, I go at the same time and I sit in the same spot in the library at the same table and I write. And I set a timer and I just put myself into it. But being in that same space and being there at the same time of the day, it may not be every day, it may not be every week, but being in that same, it's like 11 a.m. I'm there, and I'm there for a couple of hours. It's like the same time and the same space gets me in the zone to write the book. Okay. So whatever it is that you're chasing, try to find a time and a place that you can be consistent with for you to work on the thing. Okay. That will help you gamify discipline. I think that is like the game changer, the key point. Like if you can get that down, discipline will follow. Trust me on that. I also want you to get rid of distractions. Okay. Discipline means planning for failure. Okay. They say that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I think if you don't plan for a failure, you're doomed to fail. So, you think about like, well, I want to start eating healthy. I don't want to eat the same treats or snacks every single day. I want to get rid of those things. Why would you keep those things in your house then? You're setting yourself up for failure. You're keeping the temptation in there thinking, well, if the temptation comes around, I'll be strong enough to stay away from it. How about you give yourself an opportunity to never be tempted in the first place? Sometimes when people come to visit my house, they're like, well, do you have any snacks? I'm like, no. Because I know if there's a bag of Doritos in the pantry, it's not going to last long, and I'm disciplined with, I'll be honest with you, I do keep chocolate in the house, but I'm disciplined with that chocolate. I eat a very little bit amount of it. I log it in my calorie counter. But if you know that scrolling on social media is an issue for you, you waste too much time, it leaves you feeling depleted, you don't have the same self-esteem or confidence in yourself when you're scrolling too much, when you're doom scrolling, why do you have Instagram on your home screen? Make it a little more difficult for you to get to, or just get rid of the app completely if it's that much of a problem. If you find that you're watching way too much Netflix and it feels like you're just wasting every single day, but dang it, I gotta binge watch Stranger Things. How about you put a time limit, a parental limit on Netflix for yourself, or get rid of it completely. Make it harder to access, just like try to get rid of those temptations so that way they're not even a temptation in the first place. When you're trying to do something, or you're trying to chase something meaningful, when you're trying to do something that's hard or you've never done before, that's already hard enough. Why would you make it harder for yourself? And I know this seems so extreme, and it also seems like a little much, a little extra. Like, Jess, I'm an adult, okay? I can handle myself. But I find more often than not, we get lost in things and waste so much time doing stuff that doesn't matter just because we think, oh, I'm an adult, I can handle it. You know what I mean? So just, again, like we talked about last week, you've got to be honest with yourself. What is going to make you stumble? What is going to make you fail? What is going to set you back? Get rid of it. Don't flirt with things that are going to hurt you. You know what I mean? That are going to make you fail. I also want to encourage you not to paint yourself into a corner. Last week we talked about pivoting, and I think it's so incredibly valuable to be flexible when you're trying anything. Be flexible when you're starting again with something, giving yourself grace, giving yourself mercy. Not too much where it's like, well, I'm just not going to try anymore because, I'm giving myself grace. But part of, trying these things and trying to get to a disciplined state is believing in yourself, understanding that if something is not working, it's okay to find a different strategy. It's okay to map out something new, to put together a different plan. I also think a lot of not painting yourself into a corner is limiting the negative self-talk, getting rid of those limiting beliefs. Sometimes that means you have to block or mute or unfollow some social media accounts because they do leave you feeling like you're not confident, like you can't do what you want to do, or they leave you second guessing yourself. That may mean limiting some conversations with people or setting up boundaries with certain people where you're like, I don't feel like they're really supporting me in this and I could use a lot of support. I don't want to cut them out completely because it's my mom or my cousin or whatever. You don't have to cut them out, but maybe you don't share as much with them. Maybe you don't share the struggles because maybe they're just a little too critical. And you know that if you share a struggle with what you're chasing, they'll just nitpick and nitpick and nitpick. And then suddenly you're second guessing the entire thing. Or, sharing your successes with somebody else and they're very negative about it. That can be really depleting and can make you want to give up as well. So don't paint yourself into a corner when it comes to it has to be done a certain way, or I failed, so I have to quit, or I'm a loser and I can't do this. Like, don't give yourself that, be fluid, be flexible. You're gonna take some punches. It's okay. Like, keep moving forward. Like, we don't have to be so rigid about everything. And I also want to, as we're pursuing this thing and we're working through discipline, we're setting up a time and a place for us to work on the thing, because that's going to help that discipline mindset like click for us. It's going to help that get started. It's going to be the catalyst for us. We're removing distractions or excuses that can get us off course or cause us to fail or to stumble. We're limiting those negative those negative thoughts, the limiting beliefs that we have, or we're limiting opinions and stuff, because all of that chips away at discipline. You can be the most disciplined person and like know and truly believe in what you're doing, but then you can start thinking negatively about it or hear too much criticism from somebody, and then it's like, well, maybe I don't need to be so disciplined. Like for me, I remember I did an alcohol cleanse, and the pushback that I got from some people, like, I'm like, you're not doing it, I'm doing it. And me doing it really doesn't affect you at all, so calm down. I also want to encourage you to get used to the boring. Get used to the mundane, because a part of discipline is just showing up every single day and getting the job done. It means, like when you're moving towards something, like I think about my fitness routine. When I started doing this, there were days that I saw big results. It was like, that was just, my friend and I, we call it a whoosh week. Like the scale moved and it moved in the right direction. It was a whoosh week. We're so excited. But there was other times where it was like, no, I don't have a whoosh week this week. In fact, I leveled out on the scale, or I actually went up on the scale. Just understand that like there's going to be those ebbs and flows, but there's also going to be a lot of days that are just straight up boring. And what you're doing is boring. I know that sounds so terrible, as I'm literally doing this podcast and it's my begin again. It's my thing that I'm working on right now. But there's going to be days where what you're working on or what has to be done for you to move to the next level isn't super sexy, isn't Instagram worthy. It's not exciting. It's not something that you're going to write home to, or write home about. It's like, it's just the mundane. But I'm going to tell you right now, every single day that you show up and you do the mundane thing and you just do it because you have to do it, you're fostering that discipline, but also that's going to yield results at the end of the day. I think about runners. I'm not a runner, so I'm guessing on this. But if you are doing a race and it's a long one, let's say it's like cross country or it's like a half marathon. I've done a half marathon, so we'll do that. You start the race, it's exciting, right? The gun goes off, everybody's cheering for you as you leave the starting line. You got everybody around you. You're in this big group of people and you're like, yeah, we're all running this together. This is awesome. And then somewhere along the way, there's not so many people around you. The people that you started with are not, it's not the big crowd around you. Maybe there's one or two people, or maybe you're just by yourself on this course, and maybe the course looks the same for miles and miles and miles. There's no mountain, there's no decline. It's just flat ground. That's boring. And let's say the first mile was super exciting, and then you've got 8-9 more miles of just flat road. Blah. But if you keep moving forward on that boring, mundane part, guess what? Eventually, you're going to get to the next exciting part, which could be an incline, or it could be a turn, or it could be a real scenic part of the route, or it could be the finish line. And when you see that finish line, it's like the motivation just goes up, the excitement goes up, and then it's so much easier for you to actually finish, because again, you're around other people, you're around a crowd of people that are cheering for you to finish, and you're like, yeah, let's do this. But there's going to be parts of that race that are just stinking boring. Same thing with whatever it is that you're chasing. Don't let that stop you, okay? We talked last week about the road trip, and for some reason I said, your road trip, let's say we're in Florida and we want to get to Oregon. That's our road trip. There's going to be some parts of the country that are absolutely gorgeous, exciting, thrilling, lots of road stops. There's a Buc-ee's, and you're going to stop at Buc-ee's and get beaver nuggets and some beef jerky, and it's going to be awesome. But then there's also going to be parts of that road that there's nothing but windmills. Or there's nothing but cows for miles and miles and miles. There's no turns in the road. There's no trees. There's no rest stops. There's not even another car on the road. It's just you. But you have to get through those things in order to get to your final destination. So as we talk about discipline, and it's not the sexy part, it's not the super exciting part of pursuing anything, it's the thing that's going to get you through. So to recap, remember to eliminate distractions and excuses. Remember not to paint yourself in a corner. Be nice and flexible. Be nice and loose as you're pursuing whatever it is that you're chasing. And also understand that there's going to be some parts that just feel stagnant. Feels like you're not making any progress. You're in a rut. It's going to feel mundane. There's not going to be the fun, exciting, success stories to brag about every single day. But pursuing and continuing to move forward is what gets you to where you ultimately want to be. And then the ultimate game-changing, key thing to fostering discipline is time and place. Choosing a time, choosing a place, consistently doing the thing at that time and in that place, that changes absolutely everything. It's like physiologically your body rises to the occasion. You don't have to wait for an emotion. You don't have to wait for something you saw on Instagram to make you feel like all is right in the world and you're doing what you should, It's like stepping into that place at the same time consistently. It's like game on. I think about moms, when they walk into a nursery where their kid is sleeping. I don't have kids. I'm just assuming this is what it's like. But when you walk into that space, it's like mom mode kicks in, and no matter how tired you were, no matter how the day was or anything like that, when you step in there, you're like, I'm mom. I'm going to make this happen. Figure out what that looks like for you. If you've got something that you're working on and you find that you don't have time for it, schedule the time. Find what works for you, put it in your calendar, and show up. If you have to switch up your location, switch up your environment, like I said, me writing this book, I have to go to the library to do it. And it works well for me because it's like, it's work time, and being there at the same time during the day, maybe not every day, maybe not every week, but being there at that same time, it's like, okay, this is game time. So that's that ultimate changer, coming once again from Jay Shetty, of time holds memory, space holds energy. And again, at the end of the day, the more that you can be consistent, the more that you can show up and try, the more it just becomes a part of who you are. It becomes who you are. Whatever you're chasing, whatever you're trying, whatever you're beginning again, it literally just becomes a part of your DNA. So keep showing up, okay? Wow, the Begin Again series, our first series of season 2 of the Inside Voice podcast. I'm so thankful that you have been here. If any of this has been valuable to you, pass it along. Also tell me for my own selfish reasons. But thank you again for being here. Thank you for being on this journey. I'm going to leave our next series as a surprise. Because I don't want to tell you what it is and then you're like, ew, I don't want to show up for that. Let's be honest. You were thinking it. I'll see you next week.